Sorry, I didn't catch the clock there. Okay, well, let's do the Board of Adjustment. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, June 18th, 2015 Board of Adjustment meeting. Roll call, please.
Stonebarger,
Here.
Arnold,
Here.
Rhonda Johnson,
Here.
Shriver,
Here.
McGuire,
Here.
Stein,
Here.
Albertson, Johnson, and Dolly are absent.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the June 3rd, 2015 minutes, and I'd like a motion and a second. Motion by Mrs. Johnson. Second by Mr. McGuire. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second item on the agenda is applicant Lonnie Albrecht, permit number 16155, seeks a conditional use to allow for the construction of a storage building at 446 10th Avenue Northeast, used as storage units in the R3.
Applicant seeks approval to allow for the construction of one 864-square-foot building with two 432-square-foot units proposed to be used for personal storage pursuant to 21-20032 of the zoning ordinance, contingent on compliance with specific rules governing individual conditional uses, including but not limited to 21-0202 2B6A through H. Storage units is a listed conditional use for the R3 multifamily residential district per 21-20032. Individual units must be less than or equal to 600 square feet. I'll just bring this up. That's the area. The applicant submitted an attached site plan to your agenda packet, which reflects or does not reflect the following requirements of the ordinance. Under 21-0202 2B 6A through H, specific rules governing individual conditional uses, ingress, egress, off-street parking, loading, refuse areas, utilities, screening, buffering, signage, lighting, etc. were not addressed, but the applicant seeks alley access only at this time. For Chapter 2163 off-street parking and loading requirements and engineering design standards, it does not show off-street parking spaces or aisles layout, but sufficient area exists, and for a personal storage unit, he doesn't really need parking. There isn't any extra required except in front of the doors. Per 2165 outside storage and display requirements for specific uses, outside storage was not indicated in his application. Per Chapter 2173 landscape and lighting standards, it does not show the 6 to 7 boulevard trees. For Titles 5, 18, 21, and 24, requirements for sidewalk, trail, curb, gutter, and subdivision of land, the proposed parcel is a legally described subdivision of a replatted area and lacks basic infrastructure for new development such as curb, gutter, sidewalk, and trail. Waiver of right to protest is recommended as this street will undergo reconstruction in the near future. This board must determine if satisfactory provision and arrangement has been made concerning 21-0202 2B6A through H, Chapters 2163, 2165, 2173, and Title 24. This parcel lacks standard boulevard and infrastructure, grass, trees, sidewalk, trail, curb, gutter requirements from which the applicant has not requested variance. If application is endorsed, the board may consider conditions of approval such as limiting outside storage and parking, fulfillment of any or all lacking boulevard infrastructure requirements, and or any other conditions the board deems necessary.
Thank you. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the conditional use. Jill, this is just, is it going to be commercial or is it personal? You just want, how big is the actual lot?
The lot is,
Is that what's in blue there?
yes, it is 45,045 square feet, just over 1 acre.
And he wants to put one 24 by 36.
124 by
Garage.
36 building that's divided into 2 units, 18 by 24 apiece.
The intent is to rent them out or use them for personal storage?
Right now, he says he wants just personal storage.
So is Lonnie present?
Can you come on up and speak? Our ordinance says no garage without a house, correct, Jill?
Right, it's not being deemed a garage, it is being labeled as a storage unit.
Normally, a person can't buy just a blank lot and put a garage on there without building a home in 1 year. This happens to be in the R3 zone, so now it's commercial storage. Your intent is to rent this out to the general public,
No,
just for yourself?
correct. Yes, Lonnie Yellowbrow.
So is this the only structure you're planning on putting on here, or are you gonna plan in the future to put on multiple storage units?
It's hard to say. Right now, we just would like to have a storage shed there. That piece of land is basically worthless. All we do is pay taxes on it and mow it, if you know where it's at.
Now, there's no infrastructure there, sewer and water?
Nope,
That's not close to the lot at all?
nope.
Okay, so you can't,
Closest sewer is over there on 81.
This property is accessed from the alley, not from 10th Avenue?
Correct.
If a home were built there, they would have to be accessed from 10th Avenue, correct?
Well, yes. That lot is like 5 feet lower than 10th Avenue right now.
The storage building will be addressed as if it is accessed off of 10th Avenue North, just like a home in the older parts of town has a sidewalk to the street but no driveway. So it would be accessed by driveway only from the alley, just like a home like that would. But it will still be addressed off of 10th.
Exactly like the other garage there, which belongs to Paul Markworth.
Where are you planning to put it? At an end or just right in the middle, or?
Right where you see that red square.
And is that in flood zone?
The 500, I believe it is, maybe.
The yellow that you see here is floodway. We can't do anything, make any kind of alterations in the floodway. The red is the red and the blue are flood zones. The red being the worst of the two. It doesn't mean that there can be no building there. We just have to build to flood-proof standards.
They have to be built to a specific elevation?
In this case, this is not a habitable structure, so it
You can build
really
below it
doesn't
then.
need to be of an elevation.
Any questions for Mr. Albrecht? You have a question for him, Mark, before I close the public hearing?
I was just going to ask, according to the conditional use does not apply to what Lonnie's proposing to build. Is that correct? Or, I mean, that's not even a conditional use.
Yes, storage units are a listed conditional use in the R3 per 21-2032. So they are a listed conditional use.
So a building you put anything in is considered a storage unit then?
He has, the only restriction on the storage units in the R3 is that they must not have a unit that's bigger than 600 square feet, and so therefore he has divided it up into two spaces.
What kind of siding are you planning on putting on it?
Smart siding. Who am I talking to? Smart siding, sorry. Do you have that picture of that I submitted?
Jill, can you bring up how far the sewer is away? To say that there's no sewer or water or anything there, there's no sewer or water because no one's paid to put it in there yet, correct? Or is there an inability to run sewer and water there?
I believe it's,
This line here is,
Excuse me, the blue is the sewer, so the blue
Yes.
runs down that road there, which must be 9th Avenue. It's running down 9th Avenue and then the streets there also.
he won't, by the way, he won't have water or sewer utilities hooked up because that's
Right,
prohibited
but
for
on,
storage.
it's prohibitive for what? for that, for that
storage
use.
units.
But if somebody says, I want to put an apartment building there, we'd say you just have to build it at a certain elevation, and like any other developer, you got to bring the sewer to your site. Mark?
Mark Meyer, Utilities. There is water main on south side of 10th Avenue,
So
on
an-
east and west.
If a
so-
person wanted to build a home there, an apartment building there, they can just, they'd bring the sewer in like any normal person would.
How long have you owned the property, Lonnie?
Oh, I think it's been in the family for 20 years, I'm guessing.
Now, does Paul Marquardt, he has a garage,
One right next to it.
one right next to it? Is
He-
that a personal garage that he has then? Same size as what you're asking to build?
Exactly the same size. Yep. We wanted to line it up right even with his for wouldn't look out of place. But when he built his, he was a little closer to the alley. Now I've got to back mine back up. You know,
Is the Marquardt property a garage only, or is there a house attached to it?
just drive only. Paul owns, well, right there where you see his garage, and we own all the rest. And matter of fact, I live at 425 9th Avenue Northeast, which is right there. That's where I live.
Jill, let's go back. We have a district. This is R3 multifamily residential. It looks like that this is an area that you could put an apartment up there, but due to the elevations in the flood zone, it would be tricky to do it. We have a garage district zoning. It requires a minimum length of 300 feet, correct?
Yes.
How many feet does he have?
This parcel would meet the garage district requirements. It's 300 foot of frontage on the road, and I believe it's, hold on just a second.
What I'm getting at is we have a district that's designed for areas that can't, the best use for 'em might be individual structures in there where you could put garages. This might be one of those. Rather than opening up a Pandora's box of saying, now I've got an individually owned lot and I want to put a detached building on it for my personal storage, we would have 25 right behind us
Yep.
on Monday.
Yep.
For people that want to go on the southeast, southwest side of town and buy a small lot and put a garage for their own boat, motors, things like that. What might be best in this is to take a look at it, to have it rezoned to that residential garage district. And if it fits and meets all the parameters, then a person can put up an individual garage there, or multiple individual
How long has
garages.
Marquardt, Paul's garage been there? Do you know?
Oh, probably 15 years, I'd say.
Quite a while. You think he'd be opposed to rezoning his lot too, where his garage
I
sits?
couldn't tell you that.
Because then his would fit into proper zoning too.
Sure.
When you build that, would you build it above the floodplain?
I would imagine it's gonna have to be probably a foot higher than what the land is. I have to put in a lot of fill. And be the same type of fill that Paul has put in. I'd say he's a foot and a half above. Yeah. But see, the 10th Avenue, that's up there quite high. But I've lived in that house for 35 years and water has never, ever come that far.
It just gets to be a big issue when you try to resell them again. That's where the,
Any other questions for Lonnie? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll make a motion. I would make a motion that we approve it under the conditions that that particular parcel of ground gets rezoned in the garage district. And what I'm saying is, we would approve it today pending the rezoning. If the rezoning didn't happen, then it wouldn't happen, but you'd have to come back. That way, if it gets rezoned, you don't have to bring it back to us to get us to approve your garage again.
The one
Which you
thing-
probably wouldn't have to anyway if it was a garage zone, I guess, would he?
No, once that,
Then he wouldn't
once
have
that
to.
zoning's there, he'd be fine. The only thing with that garage district is what it's designed for is parts of town that really there's nothing better than. Part of that, to get that rezone, is gonna require some approval from the surrounding area in a way to protect the neighbors and their properties. They'll look, and it's gonna require the approval of the surrounding area. If that goes through and they're fine, we'll bring it in, we'll rezone it, and then not only can a person put one building there, you could put multiple buildings there. They could be sold individually to people also. That's what it was designed for, but I have a motion by Mr. Arnold. Do I have a second?
I would, just before you get a second, I would add to that with a waiver of right to protest if that street were ever improved.
I'll second that.
Second by Mr. Stonebarger. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries.
So what does that mean?
All right, thank you. The third item on the agenda is Todd and Robin Van Meter. Seek a conditional use, hold on a second, seek a variance. Permit number 16154, it's a variance for the relief from a requirement of a zoning ordinance to allow the construction of a single-family dwelling at 412 28th Street Northwest.
Application was submitted requesting to construct a 264 square foot addition onto a single-family dwelling in such a way as to create a nonconformity, specifically 2 attached garages. The application was denied based on the following ordinance regulations. 210302 prohibits the creation of nonconformities, and 1002 allows only for 1 attached garage on a lot of less than 1 acre. Currently, this is a fully compliant R1 zone parcel consisting of a compliant primary structure, which is a single-family dwelling with 1 attached garage, and 1 compliant unattached garage. Due to the proposed position placement of the desired kitchen addition, the existing unattached garage becomes an attached garage, the creation of which, again, is not allowed on a 12,906 square foot parcel per 21-1002 2E1, and would create a nonconformity which is prohibited by 210302. Let me just bring this up here.
Can you bring up the survey?
Yeah. Just one more. There is sufficient buildable area on this parcel to construct a 260 square foot addition without variances compliant with all ordinance regulations. However, the building official does support approval.
I can cut to the chase on this one if you bring it up. What they want to do is looks like they want to add an addition onto the back of their house. But that addition becomes, they currently have an attached and a detached garage. But that addition, if that addition's within 10 feet, if the corner of the addition is within 10 feet of the detached garage, which is detached, now is considered attached, even though it's not really attached, it's detached. Correct?
Correct.
So really, you see the little 12 by 22. It's not attached to the garage, but because it's so close to the garage, we have to pretend it's attached to the garage by our code. But it's really not attached, it's detached. And what we have to look at is say, well, there's other places on this lot where they could build, but that's where they want to build. So I'll open up the public hearing if the applicant's here so we can ask him a few questions. You guys all follow me?
I'm Robin Van Meter.
How come you want to build your proposed kitchen there? Not by the bedroom or on the other side of the house.
No, that's where our original kitchen is. So we just want to build onto it because right now our kitchen is like 1 person can
Sure.
fit in there.
So you want to expand the existing kitchen, and that's the only place we can put the kitchen, even though it now makes your detached garage attached, and you already have 1 attached.
Right.
Anybody have any questions for her? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for further discussion. Motion by Mr. Albertson. Second by Mr. McGuire. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed, motion carries. I'm sorry, any old business in the Board of Adjustment?
No.
Okay, and ask for motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Stein, second by Mr. Johnson. All in favor, say, oh, come on. Okay, you gotta come up to the microphone so we can record you.
The question that I've got here is this here that you are in the process of approving. I have a house that adjoins that lot. And can you put up a screen on a couple of the houses that are right in that area? Okay, I'm trying to think of the address. Okay, where is this proposed house? The one that's circled in blue? Correct. Okay. And that addition would be between, it would be added between that house and that garage?
No, it's not attaching the two garages. It's actually gonna come off the main house, but the corner of that kitchen is gonna be within 10 feet of that detached building.
Okay. My name's Gerald Anthony. The reason why I'm concerned is because I have a son that lives at 52708 Fifth Avenue. And he has a handicap that doesn't like to be around a lot of people. And I don't know if this will affect it or not, because he lives at 2708. You know, is there a fence gonna be put in on the north side of?
They're just adding on to their kitchen.
Okay,
They're not gonna add any more people into the house. It's just, they're moving the outside wall of their kitchen 10 feet. I don't see how that would in any way, you know, it's not like they're adding a daycare there or a business there, or
Okay.
there more than likely wouldn't be any more traffic or activity there, I
it
assume.
wouldn't be any higher of a structure than it currently is?
Correct. It looks like all the roof lines are gonna match what's already there.
Okay, and I'd have no objection.
Thank you.
Thank you, Pat.
With that, I'll ask for motion. I had a motion to adjourn by Mr. Albertson, second by Mr. Stein, second by Mrs. Johnson. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. All right, we'll move on to the Plan Commission meeting. You want me to wait to open it till you're ready, Jeff? Hey, Jill, we gotta sign those two, right?
What?
Joe writes them down, gee. Can I borrow your pen? Could I borrow your pen, Mark?
Let me know when you're ready, Jeff.
We're ready, Pat.
Thank you. I'd like to call to order the Thursday, June 18th, 2015 Watertown City Plan Commission meeting. Roll call.
Stonebarger,
Present?
Arnold,
Here.
Johnson,
Here.
Shriver,
Here.
McGuire, Stein.
Here.
Dolly's absent. Council Liaison Albertson. We have a quorum.
Thank you. First item on the agenda is the approval of the agenda, but what I'd like to do is I'd like to change item number 5 from a public hearing to a discussion item. So we'd like to discuss it a little more before we need to really make sure we wrap our arms around it and know what we're working with before we move it on to the city council. That's a ordinance to limit the amount of lot coverage as far as footprint and cement. I think we just need to get our arms around it and understand what we're looking at before we pass it on to city council. So with that, I'd ask for motion to approve the agenda.
So moved.
Motion by Mrs. Johnson, second by Mr. Stein. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Second item on the agenda is the approval of the minutes from May 21st, 2015. I need a motion in a second. Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mrs. Johnson. All in favor, say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Third item on the agenda is Eastwood's 18th edition preliminary plan. Jeff?
Before I say too much, I want to say that the applicant has agreed to enter into a letter of assurance to update their plan to show 66-foot right-of-ways on all of the local streets. They currently show 60, and a letter of assurance to state that their water quality facilities will meet the requirements. With that said, I have the plan open right here. Eastwood's 18th is a preliminary plan that covers an area from 12th Avenue North to 9th Avenue North, and from 25th Street East to 29th Street East. It has been brought to you guys a couple of times already. We've discussed it and went through it and kind of tried to hammer some things out, which we have. We have, the planning and engineering departments have drafted a resolution, which is in your guys' packet, that has a couple of conditions. I just brought that up to the screen. I would like to note that the planning and engineering department would like to strike number 2 out of there. We don't feel that condition is needed. It stated that the preliminary plan should be revised to include more area. We feel that their boundaries are clear and they state what they wanted to cover. With that, I'll let you guys discuss it.
Thank you, Jeff. With that, I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the preliminary plan.
Jeff, this is the one where they were supposed to build a temporary road up to 12th Avenue for secondary. Is that still?
That was, let me pull the plan back up. That was a concern with how they had their plan originally. They've redone their plan, which phase 1 will include 27th Street, so it will connect by an actual
So there will be
dedicated road.
2 ways out
Yep,
initially, okay.
yep.
Jeff, one of the concerns we had was 10th Avenue, when it was originally put in, wasn't wide enough. It wasn't our main collector street. Is now 9th Avenue
Yep.
considered that? That
Yep.
was that, and does that border the adjacent owner's property line?
Yes.
So in a case like that, 9th Avenue is a bigger, wider road. That will, the construction of that at the time of construction, which might be 20 years from now, will be shared equally by both landowners on both sides.
Yes, they have it in their plan as a collector route with 75-foot right-of-way, and they do have that as being constructed, at least as a half street on their portion of the property in phase 3 of their plan, so at least their portion should be put in within the next few years.
Okay, thank you. I mean, and even with a half street there, because you don't know how wide that road's gonna be and what the dynamics of that road are in time. For a long time, you're gonna have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 or 11 lots that butt up against it, probably use it as though it's their own, and someday it'll be a road. Just the same thing that's happened north of where the middle school is right now. There's people that came in there and said, I never envisioned the road, but it's the way the legal descriptions lie. There's a road that's gonna eventually move up that direction. Anything else that we'd covered when we looked through this? There was some park dedication. It looks like that's in there.
Yeah, that's up here.
We've got curb, gutter, sidewalks on both sides of the road. We've got 66-foot right-of-ways. Anything we're missing? Are you comfortable with the letter of assurance that's in there?
Yes, that would add a lot, yeah. It hasn't been written yet, but just knowing that they will do a letter of assurance.
And you're comfortable with the things that are required in that letter of insurance? I see that they're okay with 66 foot and the drainage requirements. They understand what needs to be done.
Jeff, you said they took number 2 out?
Yeah, yes, staff did that today. I have it up here on the screen. It originally said that they revised their preliminary plan to show all of the area that the petitioner owns, but they clearly state in their preliminary plan what area this covers. I'll go back to the preliminary plan and show you what I mean. Let's zoom out a little bit.
I was going to ask Rod, I have a couple questions for you if you want to come up.
We originally wanted this plan to continue on north, but we feel that this area is a good plan.
Right. Okay, and the next question is, I guess I'm on here. On the preliminary plan, once a preliminary plan is presented and it's approved and it moves on, even though maybe they're only going to do phase 1 of it, my understanding in the past, I didn't know that the preliminary plan was only good for X number of years. I thought once a preliminary plan was approved, that was the preliminary plan. Now, they could change the preliminary plan, but can you explain that to me a little bit?
Yeah, the preliminary plan is good for 3 years, at which time.
3 years or 2 years?
3 years,
3
yes.
years, okay.
Yep. Before the expiration of the date, the applicant, is welcome to come back before you guys and ask to get, an extension, ask for it to be approved for another 3 years.
Even if nothing changes, they still have to bring it back after
Yep.
3 years and have it
that,
approved again?
That just gives you guys a chance to look at it to make sure what they have done is working well, make sure the street widths and everything have been going good, and if they are, then we can continue to approve the preliminary plan.
And what takes it out of a preliminary plan is a plat, correct?
If the whole area is platted, yes. that's
Yeah,
correct.
then your preliminary plan's no longer a preliminary plan. Once those lots are all platted, they're platted lots of record at that time, so.
Okay.
Just the question I had for you, Rod, was I see we've got, what's the expectation of how long it would actually take to do all the lots before they're all sold, based on their current market conditions and the way things have gone in the last few years? How long do you think it is till you're to the edge of the property that's currently in the plan?
Well, the way the market is right now, as I understand it, there's not many buildable lots within the city, so there are people anxious to get started building in this area. I presume, just take for instance the last platting that was done in this area around Oak Drive. All them lots are sold except for one. And then you take this one here, we're looking at about 28 lots. That may happen within a year and a half, so we'd be back again doing the next phase there, phase 2. So
From a development standpoint, we're in June, mid-June right now.
it's gonna be tight.
What I was saying is for some experience for us is a developer up there, it's just an open field right now. By the end of the season, what stages do you go through? You'll have the roads in, you'll have them gravel, curb gutter, no asphalt. Will you get that far this year?
It's gonna be tight, because the sewer's gonna be the one that's gonna take the most time there in that area.
So your steps and process is it's all It's all out there. The sewer goes in first before you can grade the roads
No,
and
we cut in the road first because then you don't have to cut in as deep for the.
with curb and
sanitary-
gutter?
No curb and gutter, just cut the road out, basically dirt surface, and then the guys with the sanitary sewer comes in, put the work, the water comes in, make sure all the compaction's done. Then at that time, you put the services in too. Then you come in and reshape it and then put the gravel down. At that point, they could go in and start getting ready with building permits and lots, but
It'd be tough to see a house going up in there by the end of the season.
it's possible, but it'd be really, really tight.
And then you'll put the street in by the end of the next building season, the
Right.
asphalt
This-
street.
The asphalt and curb and gutter will be in by the end of next season. It's nice to let that subgrade sit for a year. The way I should say it is 1 through freeze thaw season, winter. Make sure everything gets settled out.
So what we do today will be lots that more than likely won't be sold and built on by the end of the year. 1 or 2 maybe if things go perfectly.
The only thing that may happen is that there's 3 lots. There was 4, but we're gonna go to 3 lots because one lot was given up for water quality. So we're gonna have 3 lots along 25th there. The services are in, and you do have a paved street right there. So there's 3 lots in that area. That building could take place.
All right, that's all the questions. Any other questions for Rod? Anyone else speaking in the public hearing? I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for further discussion.
A motion to approve.
Motion by Mr. Stonebarger, second by Mr. Arnold. Any other discussion? All in favor say aye. Opposed? Motion carries. Item 4 on the agenda is the East Park Addition preliminary plan.
I also want to point out on this one that the applicant has agreed to enter into a letter of assurance stating that they'll have 66-foot right-of-way where they currently have 60-foot, and stating that they'll meet the water quality requirements. With this plan, with this resolution, we had that same language as before, and as item number 2, that the preliminary plan shall be revised to include more area. The planning and engineering department feels that condition can be taken out. Also the engineering department wanted to add in that, but they would go with the letter of assurance that a drainage easement conveying the water from East Park to Willow Creek will be filed with the plat, but that would be worked out in the letter of assurance that they agreed to. So those are the 2 changes that aren't in your packet that the planning and engineering department thought were needed.
Jeff, I got a question.
Yes.
That number 2, if you take that out, there's no roads on the northeast portion of this, so if that's already, if you strike out number 2, does that mean it doesn't come back to us when they propose a new road? Or?
If they were to propose a new road, that would be a change in the preliminary plan. They'd have to come back to you. What the reason we wanted to take that out is because their preliminary plan doesn't show the east side of Willow Creek, and we don't feel that that's necessary at this time. Currently, all the lots that they have do have access and frontage to a street, so no more streets are necessarily needed at this time with their lot layout.
Okay.
Okay, with that, I'll open up the public hearing on Resolution 201519. That's the preliminary plan. If anyone's here to speak on behalf, you can step up and state your name for the record. Okay, take that back. I'm not opening the public hearing. We don't have a public hearing. It's just commission action, because
It's,
we talked about
it
it
was
before.
tabled,
Okay.
last meeting.
So I need a
believe you'd
motion
have
and
to
a
take it
second to
off
take
the
it off
table.
the table then.
Yep.
I need a motion and a second to take it off the table. Motion by Mr. McGuire, second by Mr. Stein. All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries, we're off the table. Questions on this one, as we talked through it last time, we had some questions on that north-south road as to what the status was with the stoplight. I saw we got a letter from the DOT.
Yeah,
Did you get that, Rod?
Yeah, I just got.
Have you had a
just
chance to
got it here.
digest it at all?
No, I haven't.
Neither have I.
been able to digest it.
And we just got this email, it was after 4, so I haven't really digested that one either. We did, and I have a handout that I can pass out, the recommendations from the
You-
HDR study.
Well, what I could say on this preliminary plan, what we're approving today and looking at is what we see right there. True or false? Just block 2 and block 1, Rod?
That is correct.
Okay, so you know, one of the questions we had last time is what's going to happen with those roads to the north, and kind of part of that as to what was going to go on with those roads had to do with what was going to happen to the stoplight on 26th Street. At this point right now, we've got some information on that, but we really haven't had a chance to look at it. We haven't done the preliminary plan for the road to connect to Willow Creek Drive. That's not part of this, correct?
Not going north.
Right, it's not a straight shot, so it's really, it'd be nice if we had those roads and we knew what that light was. What we said last time is we were gonna wait till June 5th until we saw that study. We waited for the study. It finally got here at 4:30. We said if we hadn't heard anything, we were gonna make some decisions on it. And in this case, we really don't have to make a decision on what happens to that road between Willow Creek Drive and Block 2 of this. Is that correct?
That's correct.
Yeah, so what we can do is we can act on what we see right in front of us here.
That's correct.
And you've agreed 66-foot right-of-ways. The other question I had was, at the intersection, if you go to the left there, Jeff, to the intersection of 26th Street and 212, that was an area where we had a question on the size of that street right there. Part of it was the question of who participates in what. What's the status with the width right there?
Well, the width is gonna be determined by the turning movements of truck going in and out of there. And the number of lanes is what it's gonna boil down to. So it's, when you get up to the property line, it's gonna be the normal street width that we have.
We're thinking
proposed.
66.
Right.
And you're okay with that? We're okay with that. I mean, I'm sure they're gonna try to make it as wide and as usable as they can, because it's a value to all those owners who are doing business down there.
Yeah, and with the larger trucks going through in there, you know, it'll be tracked, the edge of the pavement it'll be like a foot or two clearance on the rear wheel, which dictates that for the radius. So
For the record also, on the intersection of Willow Creek Drive and 8th Avenue, the distance, that is how far from the intersection?
Go ahead.
I've checked that, and what they're talking about in the study is they mean from the stop bar up to the road there, and it's 460 feet approximately.
And we have Stanton had given me, and I wanted to make it in the record, that in 2007, there's a master development agreement between all three owners of the properties in that area in the city of Watertown. Correct me if I'm wrong, Stanton, was it 400 feet or 440? 400 feet. There's a development agreement up there that no intersection could be less than 400. And this one you said is 440.
460.
460. And if the DOT says we'd like 700, the ultimate decision maker for that is the city of Watertown, correct, Stanton? And we already have an agreement that says nothing less than 400. And you abide by that.
Yeah, we can abide by that.
And that 700, that was off of HDRs. That was with the speed limit at 45. And it's anticipated with development that the speed limit would go down to 35, which they reduced their 700 feet. They reduced it down to 570, but as a recommendation.
Anything else that we talked about over the last few weeks? You know, it was the width at 26. It was whether there's going to be a stoplight there. width of the streets behind it and how far that intersection was. I can't think of anything else. I had a note that there was some drainage issues as to you needed to move some water across adjacent land, and I saw something in an email that they're okay with that.
Yeah, we have addressed that. We're gonna take care of that as well.
Any of that need to be put in the letter of assurance when we vote, or for the record? I mean,
I think that's kind of what item 11 says, a drainage easement, which we can put that drainage easement or into the.
and
letter.
for the record, that's been worked out.
They agreed that they would work.
That they would work with them, and it's a work in progress. But what we don't want to do is stop the construction in the middle of a construction season, because a 30-day holdup is a year holdup, not 30 days. Anything else we're missing? John? You guys good?
Just have a question on sidewalks. How are those going just on the front side of the businesses, or, and then out to 212, or do we not need to worry about that?
They should abide by the code we have, which should say both sides of the
Yeah,
street,
we'll
I
be in
think.
conformity to the
Yeah.
code. It'll be along the backside of the curb around the businesses and have continuity for crossings and stuff, so.
And then we don't need to worry about 212. That's the other side.
That's a different jurisdiction there.
Anything else, Dennis? You have anything? Mark? Dan? With that, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion.
I'll
Need a
make a motion to approve.
Mr. Stoneberger, motion by Mr. Stoneberger, second by Mrs. Johnson. Any other discussion? All in favor, say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Let's go to item number 5. We changed that from a public hearing to a discussion item, just to get just to reacquaint ourselves with our lot ordinance, lot coverage ordinance.
Okay. Give you a quick background on this. During the May 6th Board of Adjustment meeting, the board was asked to grant a side yard setback variance. The board struggled with this variance for 2 reasons. First, because of how much lot coverage the property would have, and second, because of how such a tall building would be so close to the neighboring property. Ultimately, the board denied the variance request, and then they asked staff to look into drafting an ordinance that would kind of spell out some of these things, that would state, how much impervious, or how much lot coverage was allowed, and height to setback ratio. Currently, the R3 zone has a maximum lot coverage of 80%. It's the only zone that has that. In this proposed draft, we put a maximum lot coverage of 65% into the R2 and the R2A, and 50% as a maximum lot coverage into the R1. And in this draft, we also put in, for every 3 feet of building height, there should be 1 feet of required setback, but this cannot reduce the minimum setback, which is already probably 6 or 9, depending on the zone. We discussed it briefly last meeting, but willing to discuss it again. So, if you have any questions for me, I did try to make some pictures on GIS, which I sent to the Plan Commission members, to just kind of giving different examples of lot coverage throughout the city. I picked properties at random. I didn't, try to pick on any properties in particular. And the way, I hope everyone had a chance to look at that, and the way I determined lot coverage in those examples is I included everything. I included the house, the garage, the sheds, the fences.
Cement, I mean,
Cement.
maybe we'll start there.
Landscaping.
When we figure lot coverage, it's the footprint of all structures, plus, it would be right to say impervious?
Not necessarily, because a structure, by definition, like a swing set would be a structure, and that's not necessarily impervious. I mean, they would probably have landscaping that would probably be pervious, but in my calculations, I still included stuff like that. I included landscaping. And I don't know, maybe I shouldn't have, but it just, for those examples, I did. We do have a definition for lot coverage in Title 21. Take me just a second to get to it.
When you were doing it, Jeff, did you find any areas of town that were more concentrated than others?
It was tough. We have a lot of different areas that have different characteristics but the same zone. For example, the lake and the northeast part of town are both zoned R1, but very different how their lots are laid out. And
I would say the reason we asked to look at it was with the new parking regulations of being allowed to park in a side yard. You could cement your side yard and park something there. In a sense, there's less room between you and your neighbor when you fill it with RVs, boats, things like that. And you try to get your arms around exactly how much is too much on a piece of ground as far to the point where you would interfere with your neighbor's right to own property. And
the lot coverage definition, I found it does include parking. It states that portion of a lot covered with structures and hard surfaces such as parking, loading, and storage. So, parking would be included in the lot coverage.
areas that you park or hard surfaced areas that you park?
That's,
Kind of ambiguous, isn't it?
yeah, it's hard to,
I think what we would look at is more hard surfacing and building.
We just said on the parking ordinance, they can park it in the backyard on grass if they want to, and that's a parking area.
It makes it really hard to enforce something if you have to measure the tops of every RV and boat. But if you look, it's easy enough if it's cement, that's in the county assessor's office as far as square footage of cement, and you've got square footage of the structure. You can almost do that right off the county auditor's
yeah,
site.
I could modify lot coverage to say like impervious lot coverage, and that would probably no longer include landscaping or parking areas unless the parking was concreted. If that's the direction you guys would want me to do before next meeting.
Yeah, I would rather see something like that. I'm also struggling with the 50% in the single family. I'd kind of like to see 65%, but that's.
That way it would basically govern the extreme more than, you always, first thing that goes through our minds is, okay, are we going to have people coming in asking for variances on lot coverage right out of the chute?
Well, I guess that's my question. Whatever we pass, if it's 50 or 60 or 65 on an R1, are we going to immediately throw a whole bunch of people out of compliance by doing that? And I don't know at this point. If I was going to vote on it today, I don't know.
That's a good question.
What
Is
the answer
is
that
to how could we gather, without it being a major study by first district? Do we have an idea that if we impose an ordinance at 65 or 50%, how many lots immediately would be now considered non-compliant?
I don't know if I could do that quickly. I know with the pictures I sent you, there were some in every zone that were above the maximum allowed that did include the landscaping. If I take landscaping off, that number would go down.
Why don't you take a look at the ones you sent us and send them again without the landscaping?
Okay.
And then we'll make a point before the next meeting that we all drive. I told Dennis that we just need to jump in the trolley and go around, but I don't think people want us pulling in front of their houses and walking around. So if you can get us some of those general addresses, maybe we'll drive by and look and kind of from a street view decide on our own whether or not it looks like too much or not. We're not trying to overgovern anything. We're just trying to prevent too much on a lot before it happens. And then somebody, some of their largest investments they have is their home, and to find out somebody next door to you overbuilt and devalued what you have, that's what we're trying to prevent.
I think the thing that sparked all this discussion and the reason it's even come up, it's the excessive that has caused us to have to look at this.
Yeah, it was
And I don't know, and
request.
you can do what Pat said, but it would also be nice to know to look at some of those smaller lots that have large houses on them and paved driveways and things, what are those percentages? You're talking 80%, 85%? How many of those are out there?
And I
Those
did-
are the things that concern us, I guess, when we have to address
I
and
did
approve something.
do some R2A, which typically have smaller lots, and then in the email I sent you guys did have those percentages on there too. I tried to pick about 20 or so from each zone, you know, kind of just randomly around town to try to get the best sample that I could without spending too much time on it.
When you were doing your comparatives, which is how I understand you arrived at some of these percentages, how does the lot sizes that we have, our minimum lot sizes, compare to the cities that you did the percentage comparisons to?
When I looked at some other cities and what they did, and a lot of other cities don't do maximum lot coverage, they do maximum building coverage. So it doesn't count any of that other stuff. Doesn't count the cement, it doesn't count the storage, doesn't count the landscaping. So there, you know, you'll see ordinances that'll say maximum building coverage of, you know, 35% or in that range, which is a little different than what our ordinance has. We already had a definition of lot coverage that included hard surfaces and parking, so that wasn't quite apples to apples.
So cement is not considered,
In a lot of other communities, it wasn't.
You know, it makes sense. I know where you're headed or what you're thinking, and that's, I'm not sure. I would think I would like to just consider the structure.
Just the structure?
What percentage of the lot is covered with the actual structure?
And that number would bring the
Because
50 down.
we don't approve driveways, we don't approve landscaping,
Yep,
but we do approve structures,
good point.
and that's our
Like would be more
concern.
trackable, I mean, more manageable if you're talking about building size versus everything from from swing sets to, yeah.
Right, but if I have 4 storage sheds on my yard, are you gonna consider them?
Yeah, and the reason I know that lot coverage is the way it is because it was originally looked at with the R3 zone, which is typically apartments and parking lot, and they wanted to count both of those areas in ensuring that those lots still had green space. So that's why for the R3, for example, which is already in place, and it has the 80%, that included the parking lots and everything that was paved or structures. But with single-family residential, you make a good point that we don't permit a lot of that stuff, the landscaping and. Also, there was the 3-to-1 ratio. There was one recommendation from the Plan Commission. One member stated that they didn't like it, but I didn't hear from anyone else. So is that something that you guys don't like, want it changed, want it out? Any suggestions or recommendations?
I like that idea because the taller a building is, the snow blows over the top, the water falls off further away. Plus, you're so close to those lot lines with tall buildings. If somebody else is a required 9, 10, 11 feet away, boy, you got a sidewall of 32 feet.
And so the way this is stated, you can only have a 27-foot sidewall, 9-foot setback.
Within 9 feet, if you're gonna go taller than that, you need to get further away
Yep,
than 9
If you
feet.
were gonna build taller than 27 feet, your setback would be increased a foot for every 3 feet of height.
Which would be considered a taller than average building, built greater than average distance away from the lot line, greater than the minimum distance.
In
from the lot
R1, you
line.
can still go up to 35 feet, now depending on the slope of your roof. I don't know what your sidewall would be, but.
And that, the wording could be changed to state that it's sidewall height or, or if it's the wall that's facing the lot maybe, because sometimes the peak is facing the neighbor, or, it's.
Well, there's so many factors there, yeah, just what you just said. Are there gutters or no gutters?
Yeah, that would be an issue.
Something 12 feet high with no gutters probably isn't a whole lot different than something twice that high with gutters.
But if your
So
peak
now you're gonna-
faces your
Now you're
neighbor,
gonna change side yard setbacks.
if your peak faces your neighbor, your 35-foot tall peak, because now your 9 foot is out the window and you're
Yeah.
12 foot away from the lot line.
Yeah.
Would typically the time we'd have that would be like around the lake again, is that where we would run into most of these issues, where they wanna go up because
There
they
would be a
can't go?
good chance of that, because they have some examples of skinnier lots that aren't, our typical 75-foot minimum.
There's an apartment building that was just built over on Third Avenue that goes out to Foundation Field. That's 9 feet and it's 2 stories high. I'll take a couple pictures of some and bring them back next time and go, is this too close or not? There's some on First Avenue too, where you've got an apartment building built next to a residence, and they're always in the shade because of that building. Well, let's go on to the next one, and we'll continue to work with the lot coverage. Item number 6, Plan Commission variance procedure.
Okay. We talked about this a couple months ago, about how our ordinance currently in Title 24 states that Section 24.0902 is variances, and it reads, requests for variances must be submitted to the Plan Commission and/or City Council under the procedures set forth in Watertown ordinances. And then there wasn't procedures underneath it. So the planning and engineering departments wanted to just kind of clarify that. And it was brought to you guys a couple months ago. And at that meeting, it didn't have anything in there saying that there was a notice requirement, nothing saying that we had to put it in the paper or send letters to adjacent landowners. So we modified it to say both of those things, that it needs to be put into the paper not less than 10 days prior to the hearing, and written notices need to go to the adjacent landowners.
Jeff, can you give us or with that, I'll open the public hearing. Jeff, can you give us an example of something that they would bring to us as a variance and how we've been handling them in the past?
Well, one of the things that kind of brought this up was a plat, the root addition that had a little bit of right-of-way, and our code states that to plat right-of-way he has to have a preliminary plan, and staff felt that might have been a good spot where a variance could have been used to say, we're gonna variance the preliminary plan because this is an existing lot that was already there.
Because of the time and expense for
Time and
the
expense.
petitioner to go through
Yep,
that.
just,
And in the past, what have we done with that one? What did we do with that one?
we just kind of brought it forward, to you guys and then to the city council, kind of, as if it, were.
We just moved it through as we normally would, and now this case, we'd bring it to us as a variance. Since the Plan Commission is always a recommendation of the council, are we recommending the variance to the council then, or do we approve a variance, and does it then go to the council? Stanton?
It would,
The language there says that if they're aggrieved by a decision by the Plan Commission, that it would be reviewed by the City Council. Is that what you're asking?
Yeah, the question is, anything we do at Plan Commission's a recommendation to City Council. It goes to the council for first and second reading. Anything we do at the Board of Adjustment, that does not go to the City Council. That goes to District Court if the applicant doesn't agree with us.
No, as proposed, if you were to grant the variance, no further review would be had by the City Council to Title 24. If you grant a variance to whatever they're seeking from Title 24, the City Council would never hear it. If you don't grant the variance and they want audience with the council, this ordinance would allow them to go to the council for review of that decision. But if the person or the applicant likes the decision you make on a variance to this title, they don't have to go to the City Council. The City Council doesn't further approve your variance.
So in a case like that, we do it, and then it's done, it moves on. We lighten their load a little bit.
you would approve the variance, not necessarily, it was how it was meant to be. You would approve the variance that it doesn't need to be preliminary planned. The plat approval itself isn't a variance. The plat, you're recommending approval of the plat. And language might be off here, but the plat would still be approved by council was the intent, but just the process would be, the variance on that type of situation. And We can continue to work on the wording if that's unclear, which it is, I guess.
So are we gonna wanna make a motion in a second and vote on this, or do we need to clarify it further? Are you comfortable that the two of yourself and legal can work through it and we can vote on it tonight?
I'll let Stanton answer that one.
I think if the plan commission is comfortable with the process, that if the city engineer makes a decision and the applicant doesn't like it, that the applicant has the avenue to come to the plan commission, and if the plan commission grants the request of the applicant, nothing more needs to be done. And if they don't like the decision you folks make, they have an appeal avenue to the city council. So if you're comfortable with that process, we may have to wordsmith it so it's clear, but as a matter of policy, if that's how you'd like to see variances handled to Title 24, we can tweak it and move it forward with that understanding that that's your recommendation.
And our ordinance says that we need to do it that way, and we haven't been doing it in the past.
Well, our ordinance is right here, what this currently says, besides this.
It says that variances must be submitted to the plan commission, but we don't have a procedure for the variances. So what we're doing is we're gonna approve, we'll vote on building a procedure to approve a variance in front to the plan commission. And you guys will wordsmith the language of that process.
We'll work on it, yeah.
All right, with that, I'll close the public hearing and ask for a motion and a second for approval. Motion by Mr. McGuire, do I have a second? Second by Mr. Stonebarger, any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Item number 7, definition of the term banner.
Okay. During the June 1st, 2015 city council meeting, the city council initiated an amendment to the zoning ordinance modifying the definition of the term banner. But whenever there's an amendment to Title 21, it must come before the Plan Commission before City Council can take action. So because of their initiating it, I'm bringing it to you guys, and then I'll take your recommendation back to City Council. And what they wanted to do is, in the definition of the term banner, they wanted to exclude municipal banners, I believe, for regulation of like where they can go and permitting, I believe.
Yeah, that's right, Jeff. There was a group of folks that came to, I think, 2 council meetings ago and presented renderings of banners that they'd like to place all over town that say, "Welcome to Watertown." And having sat through the drafting of the Gateway Overlay District with you folks a couple years ago, I knew that banners were prohibited in the Gateway Overlay District, and it was maybe just a question of semantics, but the council thought that those banners, especially in the Gateway Overlay District along Willow Creek Drive, would look nice. It'd be a nice welcome to the community, but technically they were prohibited. So they said, boy, we'd like to have them here. So if we just have to tweak the definition of banner, let's do it so we can have municipal banners in the Gateway Overlay District.
And these are the banners that are put on light poles, things of that sort is what the intention
Correct,
was. All right, thank you. I'll open the public hearing if anyone's here to speak on behalf or against the ordinance revision. Seeing none, I'll close the public hearing, ask for a motion and a second for discussion. Motion by Mr. Arnold. Second by Mrs. Johnson. Any other discussion? Seeing none, I'll ask for a vote. All in favor say aye. Opposed, motion carries. Any old business, Jeff? Any new business?
Nope.
Ask for a motion to adjourn. Motion by Mr. Stein. Second by Mrs. Johnson. All in favor say aye. Motion carries.